Hi, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of artbyrow.com, where you can find over 200 art and drawing tutorials and everything art related. Thank you for joining me today. We're going to head on over to the art studio and do some drawings. I hope you'll grab a pencil and some paper and draw along with us today. I know you'll have fun. Let's head on over to the studio. All right, welcome to the studio. Today we are going to do a really fun and really easy optical illusion. I call these tubes, but I've also seen them called, like, I think they call them like wormholes or something. I don't know. I don't know what the actual technical name is for it, but it's a really easy optical art drawing. And I'm going to angle this just a little bit and get comfortable here. So we're going to use just a marker or a pen. This is actually a Sharpie pen, a black Sharpie pen. It's a medium point. And I'm going to go ahead and just draw this out straight with the pen. That's how easy this drawing is. You can mess it up, but it's kind of hard to mess it up. So don't stress out too much about doing it correctly. It's going to be really easy to do. So go ahead and let yourself feel comfortable just using a pen. So what we're going to do is we're going to start out by drawing a wavy line that goes across the paper. And you can vary a little bit. You can have it go a little more down this way a little further, make them smaller, closer together. You want to leave a little bit of space so you have some room to make your optical illusion. But there's really no specific way to draw that line. In this entire drawing, this entire optical illusion is going to be done with just line. And line, of course, is one of the elements of art. And so this is a really good illustration for how to use and apply the elements of art in your artwork. So the next thing we want to do is just put some dots. And you can make them, some of them further apart, some of them closer together. I like to add some variation in my artwork. You don't want everything to be completely uniform and perfect all the time unless that's specifically what you're going for. And then we're simply going to connect the dots. And then we're just going to keep doing that. And they don't have to be perfect. Again, you don't have to make them even. They can be some smaller, some taller. You could have them closer together, further apart. Now, the only thing you really need to make sure you're doing with this is that you want this to kind of look like they're all connected. You don't want there to be these really like spread out, uneven lines. They should look like they're all connected in there. And then if you want, you could always flip it over. And this is up to you. It doesn't matter what order you do this in. But you're just gonna flip it over or work on the next one or however you want to do it. And do the same exact thing on the next one. Now, you could go right in a row if you wanted to. I like skipping around a little bit only because I think it makes the patterns a little more interesting. If you do them all at one time, or not at one time, but all like consecutively in a row, you tend to get it a little too uniform in my opinion. I like them to be a bit more spread out. And this space looks a little too big here. So I'm going to put another dot right there. And a lot of what you do in your artwork is just personal preference. And you
should definitely experiment, try different things. What would it look like if you had some wider areas? I personally don't like the idea of this whole thing there. I don't think that would look right. So I'm going to go ahead and do this one so you can see what it looks like when you get them right up next to each other. So what you want to happen is you want those spaces to all be filled up. So that's why it makes a difference in the spacing that you have here, because if you have something that's really wide, if it's too wide, then it might look kind of strange. But again, like I said, you can play around with that, experiment with it a little bit, because you do need this entire area to be filled in. You don't want any spaces in between. So right here, I want to show you this. So as I came up here, I went off the paper, and that's okay. You just go back and forth on the ends here and make sure you get those filled in, because we want all of this to be filled in. And I should mention, I guess, I'm doing mine on an artist trading card. I like working on artist trading cards because by working small, it saves me time and I can get more artwork done. I used to have a really bad problem with not finishing my artwork. I would start something and I don't know, I guess I would get bored with it before I ever got it finished. Maybe I was just, as they say, biting off more than I could chew. I don't know what exactly the problem was. Part of that just goes along with ADHD, but the solution for me was to start working small. And at first I started doing it more out of necessity because of the amount of hours I worked at my day job at the time. So I was working really small because I didn't really have time to work on my artwork and I had been missing it. So I started working on Post-it notes actually at first, where I was doing some quick sketches while I was at work when I had chunks of time, where prior to that I would be like most of us. I'd grab my phone and start playing on my phone. And when I made a commitment to myself to make time to start working on my artwork again, I started doing the Post-it notes instead. So instead of grabbing my phone and just working on playing on my phone, I decided that I was going to start doing some Post-it notes and doing some quick sketches. And then once I started getting in the habit and feeling a little bit more inspired, then I started doing the artist trading cards. And then I found that I really liked being able to, I like trading them, but I don't always trade them. But what I really like is being able to keep them in a portfolio, they go in a 3-ring binder and sleeves. And I can make a portfolio out of it. And then that allows me to go back and from time to time, if I want to go through and look at some of the stuff I've done and maybe look for some different ideas or some new inspiration. So all I'm doing is working back and forth here. And as you can see, I kind of angle them in a way where they run into each other, just because I want to play around with the effect of that. And what does it look like if they go every which way and zigzag into each other? And again, I'm adding a few dots here and there as needed to fill in the bigger gaps. I don't want the gaps to be too big. Like I said earlier, you could try making them bigger and see what that looks like. Maybe it would look okay. You know, the angles and the sizes and how you bring them all together will change the overall look of your optical illusion. And I do see that right here. I don't know if you caught this or not, but this one has 2 coming out and that one only has 1. So I kind of messed that up a little bit there, but it kind of makes a weird split. So I'm not sure it really bothers me. And that's the thing about your artwork, is that you have to get to a point where everything that doesn't go completely right, you don't want it to feel like it's the end of the world. You know, this is something, the purpose for me for creating my artwork is because I enjoy it and I find it relaxing. If I'm stressed out about every little mistake that gets made and everything that isn't completely perfect, then that takes the joy right out of it. Did I mess that up? Yep, sure did. When I looked at this gap here didn't feel like it needed to be split there, so in my mind I wasn't even paying close enough attention to it, but it doesn't ruin it. I think it makes a kind of a cool little effect how it splits off right there. So, and I think we all know that a lot of things are discovered, I guess you would say, by mistakes. So all this to say, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Sometimes mistakes they end up not being mistakes after all. But something like this, if you allow it to be, can be extremely relaxing. Because like I said, you really can't mess it up. There's really no way to mess this up. As long as you're drawing them connected, and I don't know, maybe I've actually never drawn them where there was a gap, which I'm actually going to, on this one, I'm going to draw this leaving a gap in here because I do want to show you something that you can do. So I'm going to bring this right up to this edge. So this is what I mean by leaving a gap. I'm going to clean this up a little bit right there. Got a little weird going off the edge of the paper. So this is what I mean by leaving a gap. And you could try doing it. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you could do it. You could try leaving spaces in between and maybe make that black. Or you can make it another color. Maybe you could make it look like a galaxy. But what you could do then is you could go in here and fill this in. And it would just kind of look like this one is overlapping and kind of tucked in behind that other one. So that's it for the actual drawing. So the next thing is to add some color, or you could leave it black and white. But one of the things I do want to mention is that what I always encourage my students to do is to do multiple drawings of the same thing, which is also why I love using artist trading cards. So what you would do is, I like doing 7 I don't know why 7 just feels like a good number to me. I like doing 7 of these. So what I would do is, as I'm doing them and I'm questioning, what would this look like, or what would happen if I did this, what would happen if I did that, I kind of store those in a idea bank in my head. And then what I might do is the next one, I might leave some gaps in between and maybe fill that in solid black and just see what it looks like. And, you know, maybe try one where I do have more of these splits in there and see what that looks like if I throw those in. You know, maybe I do back and forth and see what that looks like. So just experimenting and trying different things and having fun with it. It's just a bunch of lines, but what can you do with the different lines? What different things can you try and see what they look like? So as you're doing it and you're thinking through it, try to come up with some different variations that you can do, and then go ahead and try them and see what they look like. I mean, so far this drawing's taken, if I wasn't doing the video and talking and explaining things, it would maybe be 10 minutes. So you could do a whole bunch of these in, you know, less than an hour. You could do 7 of them probably, or close to that. But what I like to do is spread them out throughout the week and do one each day. You could spend 15-20 minutes each day and end up with the drawing each day by doing them on the artist trading cards and working small. So I'm going to grab some colors, and I think we're going to do colored pencils for this, because colored pencils work really well for this type of drawing. So I'm going to choose a color scheme that I want to use for these. I'm going to figure that out, and then I will be back with you. Okay, so the next step is to add color to your optical art drawing. And for this one, I'm going to use black for every other section. And I'm going to do that for all of them all the way across. So what I want to do is, for every other one, I want to fill in black. And I'm using color pencil. I think color pencil works really well for these. Typically for my artwork, I like to use markers. And I don't think I've ever tried markers on these. I'm not sure if I have. I think I've typically done color pencil. And you can try different things, experiment. And what I like to do is to darken the edge and then sort of feather it lighter as it goes towards the middle. And this is going to help create that optical illusion. And you want to leave a little bit of white right in the middle. So you just want to really lightly sort of feather towards the middle and then darken it up right along the edge there. And of course, there's different ways of doing that. You can color in your sections and then just go back through each one, or however you like to work, whatever your workflow is. And then I'm going to skip one. I'm going to leave that white, and I'll come back in with another color for that one. And then I'm just going to do the same thing with this one, where I'm going to keep it lighter towards the center. And then I'm just going to come back in and add it a little bit darker there. So you can see there's going to be this light reflection, which, like I said, that's going to help this look like it's curved. We're going to continue creating this optical illusion. So in this case, this is how we're using our shading to help with this effect, to make this effect stand out even more. So what I want to do, and I'm going to show you a little bit more, and then I'm going to go ahead and go off camera or speed it up or something to finish it, because this is going to be a little bit of a tedious process. There's not a whole lot to it. There's not really much to say about it. So I don't think you're gonna benefit a lot by just watching me repeat this over and over again. The important thing is you want to leave that white area through the middle. So sometimes, especially like I mentioned earlier, I'm working on artist trading cards for this. So it's kind of small and it can be hard to get that gradation even with the color pencil. And the other thing I should point out is that you want to make sure you keep your color pencils sharp. And I use an electric pencil sharpener for my color pencils because it seems to work better and I have less issues with them breaking if I use an electric sharpener. But you do want to make sure you're keeping your color pencils really sharp. Okay, so if I'm looking at where that original line is through my artwork, and you can still kind of see it after you get your other stuff drawn out, what you can do is be consistent or inconsistent or random with how you do your alternating black in here. So what I mean by this is my line right here, my original line. For this next one, I can do the same. So this is the first one on the top of the original line. So I think down here, I want to make that one, and by that one, what I mean is the first one on the top of the line, I want to leave that one white. And then do the next one after that black. So it alternates going across this way as well. That's not that important, I don't think, for this type of drawing. And to be honest, I don't know 100% that I'll be able to keep that pattern because of how this splits. Because then you're going to have it opposite on the bottom, but I have this weird split thing over here. So it's probably not really going to matter. But I do want to point that out only because you need to think about and be intentional with how you're using your colors and your patterns. And for some things it matters and some they don't. For this particular type of drawing, I don't think it's really going to matter because, as you can see, even so here it's opposite, but the way it curves up, it's going to end up lining up anyway. So, but what I wanted to point out was just to be intentional with your decisions that you're making. Like I said, it's not critical on something like this. On some, it does matter. Now, what is fairly important, maybe even to the point of that I would call it critical, is if you're alternating every other one black, and as I'm talking and not paying attention to what I'm doing, I almost skipped 2 there, and I caught it. But if you were to do a different type of pattern where if I would have skipped 2 and left 2 white and done the black, that pretty much would have messed up what I'm trying to accomplish here with this pattern. So you do have to pay a little bit of attention. And sometimes what people do is they do every other one and they sort of just make an indication of where that is ahead of time so that you don't get, once you start getting in the zone and you're not paying attention as much to what you're doing and you're just in the moment and working on it and you start relaxing a little bit, sometimes you're not paying full attention to those sorts of things. So there are little tricks you can, like I said, you can go in and make little indications on which ones are going to be filled in just to try to draw your attention to it a little bit more. And I think probably some people have more trouble with those sorts of things than others. Sometimes when I'm making the videos and I'm talking and thinking about the important things that I want to point out, my attention is split between focusing on my drawing and focusing on the things I want to point out and the things that I feel will be beneficial for you to know and to hear. So it splits my attention between the two, and sometimes it ends up with making mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes can ruin your artwork, and sometimes they're not really going to matter. It just depends on what they are. Like I said earlier, this little split thing down there was not intentional. I just wasn't paying enough attention, but I don't think it's gonna affect anything. I think it's fine. And it's when, what does Bob Ross say, happy accidents? Sometimes you do something that wasn't intentional and it feels like you screwed it up or made a mistake, and it might end up being something kind of cool or different or interesting that you maybe wouldn't have done before, and then you did it not intentionally and it ends up being something you discover that maybe you wouldn't have discovered before. So you can have happy accidents in your art. You can discover new things if you make a mistake and do something that you didn't intend to do, but some are happy accidents and some would not be. Like I said, if I were to mess up on this pattern of every other one, that would probably mess it up pretty good. I don't know that it would be the end of the world necessarily, but it would definitely throw the visual effect of the pattern off, that's for sure. I don't think that would be an example of something that you would do unintentionally and then finish it and think that it worked out for the best. But who knows, maybe if you did that, something like that, and messed it up, maybe you switch what you're doing and recover from it and it ends up being okay. Who knows? All this to say, pay attention to what you're doing on your artwork and try not to stress out too badly about what you're doing and everything being perfect. And I mean, obviously we don't want to make a bunch of mistakes, but oftentimes we think that our artwork needs to be more perfect than it actually needs to be. So what I want to point out here is on this edge, you still want to have that white reflecting, but you also need to decide a little bit on how big this is actually going to look. So by putting this reflection here, if this reflection is basically in the center, then I'm making this so it's not that big. You could make some of them black all the way across. You don't have to get both sides and the reflection in there, but I do want there to be the reflection. And especially since this one curves down, you can see where it's a little bit smaller. But if you were to make this go wider, where it looks like it came out here more, then you could fill that in solid black. You wouldn't necessarily have to leave that white reflection there. So I don't really think there's a whole lot more for me to explain to you while I'm doing this. I don't think there's going to really be any benefit to continue to talk through this. I think it's pretty straightforward. I think I kind of covered everything that's important with it. So I'm going to finish this up, finish up the black, and then I will be back with you to talk about working on our next color. All right, so I went ahead and I finished up the black sections off camera, and my original plan was that I was going to add some other colors or another color in these white areas, but I actually like the way it looks with just the black and white. I think it's got a really cool effect to it. So I think I'm actually just going to leave this one as it is and call it done. But what I do want to talk about is the idea of doing several of these and trying some new ideas. One of the things that I've never done, so I've never done a black and white one. I've never done one with like maybe black and then just one other color. Everything I've done previously with this type of drawing is to have multiple colors throughout these sections. And some of them I've done black, and then I did like this one maybe would be blue and this one might be orange or whatever colors I ended up using. But you could play around with so many different variations of this and trying different things. And that's what I really love about the artist trading cards, is it saves you a lot of time. And the other thing with these is that they're pretty relaxing to do if you allow yourself to just let go, relax, and not worry about what the end results are. And just have fun and experiment, try different things, play around with it. So I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you feel inspired to work on your own optical art. And I will see you shortly. Have a good day and happy creating.
Well, how'd you do? Did you make some of your own artwork? I hope you did. I hope you felt encouraged and motivated to start some of your own work. And I hope you feel inspired to keep working on your art. If you enjoyed this video, give us a like and make sure you subscribe so you can see more videos from us when they get posted. I'll talk to you soon. Happy creating!